All right. We are a couple minutes after 2, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome, you guys can hear me, right?
Yep, hear you loud and clear.
Cool. I'd like to welcome everybody to our most recent edition of Bring a Hacker to Work Day. So this is our basically day in the life series where we talk to a cyber pro about their journey. How do they get to where they're at today? What would they recommend to other people who are trying to get into the field? And any advice that they will learn, based on their journeys thus far. So our guest today is Mr. Devin Price. He's a cybersecurity professional at Now Secure, published author. And I believe I saw something about a top 40 under 40 in cybersecurity. So I'll let you introduce yourself because I will not do any justice, and let the folks know, who you are and, how did you get here? What are you doing?
So first off, Tanisha, again, just want to thank you publicly for having me on. Love your program and really just looking forward to adding value. So just kind of a little bit about me. My name is Devin Price. I'm a cybersecurity professional in the Washington, D.C. area, born and raised. I've had about 7 years of total IT experience, and I got into cybersecurity about 4 years ago. And my main domain within cybersecurity has been application security. So as Tanisha was saying, I work at Now Secure, which is a mobile security company. And my main job is to identify privacy and security risks within mobile apps and make sure that we can help our clients deliver secure mobile apps faster. And Tanisha, as to why I'm here, I think it was in March, Tanisha, where our company, Now Secure, had a empowerment group, and Tanisha was the speaker, and she was talking about Black Girls Hack and about the program and about all the great things you guys are doing. And I just reached out to her afterwards, say, hey, I'd love to, kind of share my journey, share what I have learned with people that are maybe coming up behind me. And 2 months later, here we are. We got it scheduled, and looking forward to just helping people get to where, get into cybersecurity and kind of get a little bit further than I was by learning from some of my successes and failures.
Yeah, I always laugh because when I came to speak to your group, I didn't know what I was, kind of getting into. Right. Somebody was like, hey, can you come talk to us? And people frequently say, hey, come holler at us. And I'll be like, okay, cool. So I get in there and there's maybe 20 or so people. And, I'm just talking about things that I'm very passionate about, about the squad, about Black Girls Hack, and about how companies need to do better in terms of their diversity, in terms of, getting, new types of people in there, new ways of approaching people. And, I didn't know anything about, Now Secure or what you guys do. I now know that you guys are operating in the mobile penetration testing space, but, I was sitting there like, yeah, probably about 80% of what I'm doing now is mobile penetration. And, there's not a lot of stuff, and kind of had to, I'm just, just talking about my life. And your CEO actually said, hey, we can definitely do something about this. We're going to give your squad, training and, certification vouchers to be able to move in the mobile penetration space. And he was kind of like, we're going to do it for everybody. And I'm just kind of like, I just came here to talk to you guys. Like, I wasn't expecting any of this. He's like, oh, I'm the CEO. And I'm like, oops, maybe I should have maybe planned this. But I think it went relatively well because we've got an amazing outpouring of support from Now Secure. We partner with them.
Yeah, let's say congrats.
Thank you. And but Devin reached out separately and was like, hey, I see what you guys are doing. Let me come and talk. And I was like, yo, we would absolutely love to have you come and talk, because again, we don't see a lot of particularly women, but people of color either, operating in the space. And I think that mobile penetration testing is a very niche,
very much
kind of space, so, for people to, say, hey, I'm operating in this space, this is what I do, it makes you kind of like a unicorn. And so, we're trying to, get more, unicorns to be able to come and, operate in the space. So what do you do day to day? What does that look like for you?
So day to day, my main job is to deal with clients. I could pretty much, if there's an app that you can think of, we probably deal with who that client is. Really take, it's usually about 10 business days where we'll kind of use some of our proprietary tools, some of our open source tools, kind of like Burp Suite, if we're kind of track data in transit. And we'll just kind of run the app through a bunch of use cases, a bunch of tools, and basically try to find out ways that it has insecure vulnerabilities or something that an attacker with not great purposes might be able to find and be able to take over the app and find out. Really, it's about data. How could somebody looking at the app that the client has built have data or find data that you wouldn't otherwise want them to, such as your, let's say, your username or password if you're logging in, any data that you've stored within the actual device. Some people may not know that even if you delete the app, there's still data that's left within the storage of your actual phone. So we have to make sure that, when you log out or when you delete the app, that data, there's no data left in the memory of your testing device.
Yeah, I've, I think I mentioned to you guys that like I'm very much so a baby in this, mobile penetration testing space, and there's not a lot in terms of, standards, in terms of like, a one size fits all approach to how you, take a look at mobile apps. And, anybody who's got a phone, probably knows that there are, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of different like apps that are out there for, any little thing. And each one of those apps has its own, permissions and the ability to be able to do things on your device. And that's not something that I think most people as a consumer, take a look at. So can you talk a little bit about like, some of the things that you may have found that, that was kind of like shocking to you, like as just from a security space?
Well, I think I'll say one thing first. While there isn't, I wouldn't say a recognized standard. One of the things that I would say is an industry probably consensus is the mobile application security verification standard. That's probably the closest that we have right now to a legitimate standard. It basically takes 8 vectors of a mobile app from a security standpoint. And that's kind of what people test for right now. And hopefully, again, we will have a standard at some point. But as far as, what was your second question?
Like, have you seen anything that's kind of shocked you? Like, how is it that, an app is doing this and, nobody's, said anything or, like.
Probably to me, it would be anytime we're looking at the forensics or data storage nature of an application, just the data that's left, kind of left in storage. If somebody were able to reverse engineer it using a tool, that this is the kind of data that will be found really without much effort, I would say. Obviously, if you're in mobile security, it's not going to take much effort if you have access to a reverse engineering tool and to look kind of through the code and, oh, okay, there's a API, secret there, or there's a user ID that I can just find that's just been left over from the last person who used it. Those are usually the most shocking ones. I think any dynamic findings of when we're kind of looking at data in transit, those are not good, but those I think I generally understand. It's usually the findings that happen when code is not active. That's the one to me that really said, wow, there wouldn't be too much work if somebody was up to no good here.
Yeah. So how did you get into this space? Like I mentioned, I think this was kind of like a very small subsector of, penetration testing. Like, did you go to school for this? I mean, I know the answer is no, but what did you go to school for? How did you end up in this space?
Right. So I went to school for information systems at UMBC, Go Retrievers, anybody who's in the area. So I went there for information systems, got out, worked at an insurance company, and within their IT rotational development program, which I will say for anybody who's on, and if you're kind of just starting out, really out of college and you like just technology, forget cybersecurity or anything like that, a rotational program is probably the best thing that you can do if you don't know what your niche is in IT, because it will allow you to basically spend, I think for me, it was like 18 months within one department or one framework of the IT department. So I could kind of get an understanding of, okay, they basically had me at our claims department. So I was working with a lot of legacy systems there. And I was like, okay, this is cool, but I don't know if that's for me. Then I went over and I worked for the mobile department. So I was like, okay, this is a little bit more modern. Okay, you know, and after basically my rotation, I was like, I don't know if I've really found my niche quite yet. And Tanisha, one of the things that really helped me is I would walk around. I would walk around the building. This is back when we still went to offices before COVID. I'd walk around the building, and there would always be this one door that was locked, and it said enterprise security on it. And I'd been hearing a little bit about cybersecurity, but like I didn't know much about it. And my program was ending, and I just asked one of the coordinators. I said, "Hey, is there anybody I can talk to within that department and see if I could just, get a spot over there and kind of learn about cybersecurity? Because it's far easier to do that when you already work at the employer than if they don't know you." So I was able to talk with somebody. We had a conversation, and there was a role that came up. I interviewed for it, and that's how I got into cybersecurity, and I joined their application security team. So I did that for about 3 years. And
did you get behind the door?
Oh, I did. Yes. Yes, I did. I got behind the door. And that was great. So then pretty much 3 years, I learned a lot about cybersecurity fundamentals, a lot about application security from the web portion. There's a lot more web application security people out there than mobile. And then after about 3 years, I was like, I want to kind of do something different. And I got invited to a job fair that Now Secure was at. And they were telling me, about mobile security. I was like, oh, okay, that's, kind of basically like a lot of people, I didn't really think about that before. So that's really what had me join Now Secure, because it was still application security, but it's instead of web, I would be doing mobile. So in answer to your question, I didn't go to school for mobile security. I just kind of got in to IT, then I kind of made my way to cybersecurity, and now I'm basically hopping around in the different disciplines of cybersecurity. So you don't have to be in mobile security if you want to be a mobile security pen tester.
Yeah, I know I definitely didn't be like, hey, I want to, do mobile pen testing, at all. It was just like, hey, there's this project. Do you want to go on? And I was like, okay. And just, you just keep doing it, and I think it's been interesting for me. So as far as certifications is concerned, I know that Now Secure has their own training. They've got certifications. They've got, things in the space as far as training people, educating people in, at least the way that they do things. Outside of that, do you have any, certifications? Have you, have you done anything that's I guess, legitimate, made it more legitimate, your experience in terms of employability, or what,
Right.
What does that look like for mobile?
Sure. So I will actually go back, and I think, I'm pretty sure that because of Now Secure and Black Girls Hack partnership, everyone I think within the organization has access to, it's called Now Secure Academy, which is basically our online training tutorial. You can take a bunch of classes and learn about mobile security fundamentals, how we test things. So that's a great resource that I would definitely follow up on if anyone's interested in that mobile security standpoint. As far as certifications, I actually got recently, back in February, I sat for the Pen Test Plus certification. And that is for not so much for mobile security, but it's just for pen testing in general. Just because I had done it for a year, and I'd basically been working as a pen tester for a year. And I said, hey, I really want to, challenge myself, verify my skill set. And I just started studying for it probably about three or 4 months, and was fortunate to pass it. So that's probably my as far as a pen tester, that CompTIA Pen Test Plus is a great way to just validate, one of the ways to validate your skill set.
So you got in, you said you went to, I think it was UMBC,
Yes.
For undergrad, right?
Yes.
And then you have your Pen Test Plus,
Yes.
and you've got some work experience, but you haven't had to, I guess, go through a whole bunch of hey, you need to have certifications, you need to have 3 to 5 years of experience. There's been no, at least in your story, no, adversity, or no, this is kind of a stretch for me to get here. So has it been just, right place, right time, or, would you say that it's a lot easier to get into I guess, the space that you're in now?
So I think what I'm not saying is all of the applications and applications I've put into other jobs that have not gone through. So I've applied, before I was at all those places, you would apply. I think when I was coming out of school, I would apply to a bunch of places, and then, they don't all work out. So I think the adversity is always going to be there. It's just more of a little bit of, I would say, of just I'm not going to quit. And also I would say it's just, kind of really, some people would say, right place, right time. I just say kind of the favor of God in my life, just kind of being, meeting the right people, being at the right place. Some people call it different stuff, but yeah, that part I really can't speak to. But as far as something that I did, but I will say that, like, there have been rejections. And that's just kind of something I would say, not so much even within tech, but just in life, that's going to happen. My biggest thing is just anybody who's, if you kind of feel like you're getting the door slammed on you, is don't give up. Don't give up, and don't try to, I guess, figure it out yourself. This group, this Black Girls Hack, is a great group because it's a bunch of people who are all, either in the same boat, or, somebody's maybe a little bit ahead. And they can kind of tell you, hey, here's kind of what I did. Don't give up. I basically got, 9 doors slammed in my face, and that 10th one, that's the one. So kind of just being in community, that would be my advice. Other than don't give up, is being community, because my father told me this. And I think as I'm growing in my career, I see how wise that is. It really is, at a certain point, more important who you know than what you know. And I think when I was younger, I heard that is, it doesn't matter what you know, which is not true. You do need, and that's what we're talking about, you do need to be able to validate your skills. But especially, I think, within tech and really cybersecurity, there's so many people trying to get into the field, that having somebody who really, I think, is willing to take a chance on you in addition to your skills, that can really be helpful. And I think, Tanisha, having those people who could say, hey, I kind of like what he's got going on, I'm gonna give this guy a shot, those have really helped. And that's probably why, while I faced the adversity, I may not have had to face the same kind of adversity as other people, because they may not have known the people that I was fortunate to know.
Yeah, I tell people all the time that for me, I don't tend to like humans. I'm not a people person. I'm not a social person. People tend to think, because of what I do now, that like, I like people and I like being out here. But that's not who I am at all. And I tried for very many years to get into cybersecurity, and go at it alone, right? And I went at it from the approach like, hey, I'm a Black woman. I'm going to give you all of the degrees. I'm going to give you all of the certifications. I am going to shove all of the credentials, down your throat, so that you have no reason, not to hire me. And then people are still not hiring me, so I went about it from the, I can do this all by myself. I don't need nobody perspective, and it didn't work. And then, I think since I've started networking, and really, I wasn't even networking on behalf of myself. I'm mostly networking on behalf of the squad and on behalf of other people. There is so much of like you said, that do you know so and so, like, we'll have an application process for something, and then the person that's running it will basically be like, hey, let me know who stands out, right? So much of the formal things that we see that at face value are like, hey, I've got an equal shot as everybody else, is also like, who do you know, and who has seen you, out here in these cyber streets, grinding, because people all of the time will say, like, hey, I'll jump into anybody's DMs for, on behalf of the squad, like, hey, someone's trying to get a job at your company, like, can you, let them know, what's what, how to help them apply, can we get them in the side door versus the front door type of thing. And I can definitely advocate to say that doing it by yourself without that network it's not easy, like, and I've tried to go about it from a, like, I'm going to, be so amazing that there's no way that they can turn you down, so I think that there's some gems that your father dropped, that are very important.
That's the thing, is that approach has been successful. I'm just crazy, like, I cannot deny this person's technical talent. What I'm saying is, it will be, I think you'll have a far, I'm a basketball fan, and one of the things that my dad would tell me is you want to kind of take the high percentage shot, or basically what's the shot that you are most likely to make. I could probably make a 3-pointer, but it might take me about 10 shots, but I can make a layup hopefully within either once or twice. So looking for those high percentage, it's kind of, hey, I know I have my skill set and I kind of know some people, versus kind of just one.
Yeah, I actually played basketball, so I'm always using a basketball analogy. So I will, like, they can tell you, like, I will tell them, like, to shoot all shots, like, there's the high percentage ones, there's low percentage ones, but you can't make any shots that you're not shooting,
Yeah.
So, like, I'll tell them all the time, like, you need to be shooting these shots, which is why, I have no problem, like, stepping into somebody's DMs, like, hey, I don't know you very well, but someone's always trying to get a job there. Yeah. So can you talk to them, or can you connect them to the right people? Because I think that that's a very, very big part in making it. That's as close as we're going to get, to, I guess, nepotism, not having people who are already in positions of power.
Yeah, and I would say, really, for minorities, especially women, I think there's kind of the front. I think you mentioned the front door approach is kind of, hey, I'm gonna just apply with my resume and try to get through. It's called basically an applicant tracking system. It's basically
ATS.
that ATS, or that wall, basically just robots are looking for keywords within your resume. Nobody's even looking at it yet. And I think when you kind of have that network of, hey, Tanisha, I'm applying for this position. I feel like I got a good shot at it. Can you kind of just, let the hiring manager know? That's kind of that side door where you still have the adversity of, once they see it and they call you in for the interview, you still have to do what you got to do. But that's one less level of adversity than the person that has to go through the ATS and then has to do everything else that you would normally have to.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That side door, that back door, they hit different,
Yeah.
The people who, I'm Tanisha, I'm a Black woman named Tanisha, which is, you see me coming through the front door, but through the side door, through people speaking, saying, hey, I know this person, I think they'd be a good fit, that gets you so much farther than, just trying to, work the AI.
Yeah.
Especially AI that's working actively, I think, working against you.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you guys look for in terms of, like, the folks that you work with, as far as hiring? You've gotten to a position now where I think I saw, like, there's a senior in your title, right? So, like, for the people that you see around you, like, what type of folks are those? What kind of qualifications do you have to be, to kind of get there?
I would say that so we hire for both entry level and expert. Entry level, I think we definitely want obviously some knowledge of cybersecurity or just information security fundamentals. Like, for me, when I came in, I had a bunch of, web application security experience. I didn't have any mobile security experience, and I had never done pen testing before. But there was enough there that I think my hiring manager, now my current boss, was able to say, okay, you have enough IT and enough security experience that we think you can learn. Mm-hmm. So I would say, for anyone coming in on the entry level, I would say aptitude and attitude is show that you have the base level, something like a security plus, any type of IT or really cybersecurity experience, whether that's just you being a SOC analyst, or whether that's you just working at the help desk and, hey, I have my security plus and I'm on, a site like Try Hack Me where I'm learning about cybersecurity, just something to show them, okay, this person has the passion, this person either has the passion or they have the knowledge. And you also just like it. That's the thing I would tell people is the resume doesn't really speak to passion as much. It really says, I think, a lot of what you can do, but really when you, I guess, get to that interview is show that passion. I mean, answer the technical questions, but really show that passion of, here's kind of what I'm doing in my free time. That that is one of those things that I think people who are especially trying to get or look for entry-level people, a lot of that's what they're looking for is, hey, because you can teach people, I believe, you can teach people technical things. You can't teach somebody passion. So if you can demonstrate to them that, hey, I'm doing all this stuff, outside of whatever my normal job is, if you're not in tech or if you're not in cybersecurity, hey, after my 9 to 5, here's what I'm kind of doing. Here's a book I'm reading, here's a podcast, here's a technical write-up that I've done. If you could show that really proves to them when you say, hey, I can learn. It's just like, no, he is, or she is.
Yeah, I have a lot of folks who are very new to the industry who are in the Try Hack Me, that are in the the hacking box, that are out here grinding. A lot of the I guess feedback that we get is like, hey, you guys are throwing a lot of opportunities, a lot of training, a lot of resources our way. How do we kind of like prioritize that in order to move towards whatever our goal is, right? So there's a lot of resources out there. Knowing
Correct.
what you know now, what would you recommend to people who wanted to do something in the I guess the web application testing or mobile application testing, or just this penetration testing space?
Okay, I'm a believer of start with the end in mind. Of if that's what you want to do, my first piece of advice would be to basically do what we're already doing here. Is I would get around and I would just talk with people that do what I do, because I want to know. There's something that I think I heard from somebody is when you're dating someone, if you're friends with them first, you can find out a lot of information about them before you have to date them. So when you think about a employer or a job, whatever job, unless you're starting your own business, you're going to work at a job. So I want to talk to that person. Hey, you work at this place with this job. What do you do all day? Oh, I do this. Then you kind of find out, well, you know what? I did, but I don't think I want to do that. So then you save yourself that time of applying and doing all this stuff. And I basically already kind of know what I'm getting into. So I would network first. I would do just basic research about, hey, what are they asking for these jobs? Because you're right. There's a lot of resources out there, but if I'm looking at a job description and I want to be, a web application security engineer or a mobile pen tester, after probably about, if I'm looking at 5 or 6 job descriptions, you'll be surprised that a lot of them have the same characteristics or the same bullet points. So it's just like, okay, if the past 6 job descriptions for a mobile pen tester require me to know how to use Burp Suite, I should probably kind of look into that, or at least have a working knowledge of that, so that when I get that interview call and they're like, hey, do you have, are you familiar with Burp Suite? I can say, yeah, I've looked into that in my own time. I'm using the community version. So that is what I would say to to fine tune all of those resources, because sometimes you may be focusing on something that the job you want may not necessarily require. So that's what I would say. Network with people, because they can kind of tell you, hey, you really actually want to focus on this. Like this one is important. And then also the job descriptions will show you this is what's coming up a lot. So those two are what I would use to kind of fine tune my, I guess I would say my study plan, if you want to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I tell folks something very similar to that is, know what it is that you're working for, right? What's the goal? What's the world domination plan? So for me, it's been, I want to be a CISO, right? So what do you need to be, to be a CISO? They want you to know, the business, right? So for me, I was like, I'm going to need an MBA, right? They want you to know cybersecurity, of course, so, I need to make sure that I've got specialized experience in cybersecurity. What else do they want? Okay, they want to see that you've got experience managing people and managing budgets, right? And then you work your way backwards to like, hey, my next job, I want to try to get, management experience. I want to get, budgeting experience. I want to get, whatever you need, basically to get to your end goal. And, people, may change their end goal. There was one point in time when I was like, hey, I want to be an ER doctor, right? And then I volunteered as an EMT for a few years, and I'm like, I don't actually like blood.
Volunteer. Yep. So
You know,
you saved yourself all that time just because I did it for
definitely
free.
did.
It wasn't a
Right.
job. I did it for free. And once I said, hey, you know what? I can walk away and my livelihood is not on the table.
Right. And I mean, and the other thing is, that I think that you get, the experience of being a volunteer in that space, right? No one's going to say, like, hey, volunteer EMT experience is any less valuable than, say, paid EMT experience. Your pockets may be a little bit heavier,
Yeah.
but, it's still, lets you know what they're doing, kind of day to day, which is a really like, sideways kind of way to say, hey, go volunteer,
Yeah.
your friendly neighborhood nonprofit. But
I would put that as my third, actually, because you brought that up as far as volunteering, as far as, let's just say, tech or cybersecurity. If you can show, hey, I'm involved, or I entered for like a capture the flag event, that's kind of like a sideways. If you can't get an internship, it's kind of a backdoor. Hey, I'm volunteering, or at least I'm learning in a structured environment. Again, all of it's just to show you that, hey, I'm doing something. And
right.
you'll be amazed that if you can just show people, hey, I'm doing something, how far that can get you. Let me see.
So the question is, what platform would be best to showcase what you're learning? So I'm thinking about this in terms of like a portfolio. What does that look like for someone in a pen testing ethical hacking space? Like, how do you show someone? Do you just give them your, hey, here's my, my, what is it called? My login for, not your actual login, but here's my username for, try hack me, that shows my ranking. It shows how many rooms I've done, or this is how many boxes I've rooted on Hack the Box. What does that look like?
What I would say is it comes down to what you do that shows off what you do the best. So for example, you can write. If you're a great writer, you can say, hey, I went through Try Hack Me and I went through all of these rooms and this was my write-up. And I've literally seen like on LinkedIn or just anywhere, people will literally go through a room and they will show you screenshots of, I did this and here's my screenshot. Then I did that. So that kind of shows you writing, I guess, your writing skills and your ability to technically write as a pen tester is very, it's crucial. So you can do that. You can also, I guess, if you're more of a video person, you can start a YouTube channel and you could literally go through, I'm just going to use Try Hack Me for all these. You can literally just go through a room and you can show people in real time, you kind of working your way through it when you kind of get through a room so they can see it. I've also seen videos of that. People will record, it's usually like 10 or 15 minutes. They go from one room and this is that. You can put that on a resume. Here's me going through this room on, SQL injection. So that way, when somebody views your resume, they can actually see what you're doing. I would also say that you can probably, I would say if you can actually start a group like this, more so when you have a meetup, if you're the meetup for, I've seen it for a young lady where she had it at her college. She started a cybersecurity club that she was, the president of, and they were talking about cybersecurity. It shows leadership. It shows that, hey, I'm passionate about what I'm trying to learn. So what I'm thinking, I think the question, I think it was Naomi. You can, I guess I can slice that different ways for you without knowing a little bit more about who you are. If you want an actual platform, I say Try Hack Me. I've used it, love the program because it really is great and it can really help people who know nothing about cybersecurity. It will take them from zero and it will take them, as far as they want to go. So if you're looking for like an actual platform, you can do that. But I also wanted to talk to people where it's just like, well, maybe, I'm more of a video person or I'm more of a writer or I'm more of a people person. I like having people, getting people together. Like there are different ways that you can showcase what you're learning. It just depends on like what flavor you're trying to do.
So you mentioned how key writing is. I know for myself that, all of the mobile applications that I tested, there's a report for it, right?
Right.
And, we have to record our findings. We have to, analyze a whole lot of things for each mobile application, right? Are you hiring somebody who doesn't have the ability to write, who's not, like if they've got maybe like some skills, but they don't have that ability to, actually document that or, communicate that in a written form? Are you hiring people who can't do that?
I would say it would be best that you kind of have, well, here's the deal. Let me unpack that. I think most people have one or the other. They're either really great at technical, like, hey, I can find all the security vulnerabilities and the reporting, I'm working on. Or there's people who's like, hey, I can write, and I just need, to get better at finding vulnerabilities. I would say you need to have at least one. But I would say if you're trying to get in, it would help if you can show, hey, here's my work in progress. Here's what I'm doing. And that's kind of where that technical write-up comes in of, yeah, that technical write-up is not going to be maybe the way your employer is going to have you do it, but they can at least show, okay, here's the attempt. Okay, here's kind of where they are. So you can kind of show off, here's where I'm at right now. If you can show that, I think it's really going to help your chances. Otherwise, you really have to impress them with, your wealth of, okay, here's basically your stories of, this is how I found this mobile security vulnerability. Like, you're really going to have to go above and beyond on that, where they can say, okay, we just need to just help him or her with that writing aspect.
Yeah, I if it was one or the other, I think that it probably makes more sense for people to be able to document what it is so that they can be able to report that, rather than, be able to explain it, right? Because if you're talking about, in depth, like, this is how I hacked it, right? Your non-technical stakeholders are not going to understand what you're saying. It's all going to sound like, numbers, floating around in a cloud. It's not going to make sense. But if you can communicate, what it is that you found and why it is that matters, to make the business case, in my mind, that's, far a greater skill than the people who can, just basically do all of the hacking things. Because a lot of, the space, even though people don't say it, is the consulting piece, is the talking to customers. It's, communicating why someone cares, right? Because just because I hacked it and I was able to get in, doesn't matter if I can't explain to them why they care about that, because that was, I think, one of the biggest jumps for me as a, a baby hacker, is jumping from, not just, hey, I've identified the things, but then also, how do I tell you to remediate them? How do I tell you to mitigate them? And then, why do you care? It's not just enough, when we're doing it, try hack me, for example, you may put like a cross-site script in there, and then, it flashes the number 1 on the screen, and you're like, yeah, it's there, this is a vulnerability, right? What does that mean to someone that, has an application? Why do I care if somebody can make a pop-up message show, like, to actually explain that? I think it's a valuable skill that, people, don't tend to think to include on their, on their resumes or in their discussions about, like, tell me about a time type of stories.
Yeah. Which is most valuable? 100% the writing, because especially as a pen tester, that's ultimately what the client is paying for. They're really paying for the report and the explanation, follow-up explanation if they need it. That's really what this is all about. And I think sometimes, to your point, some people might think, oh, great, I get to hack all day. But you do have to explain to a client, okay, how does this, how can I make my app better? Basically, how can I secure my app now that you've done everything that you've done? So that's where that communication and that technical writing comes in. And if they can't understand that, then they're not going to get as much value out of the pen tests as they would want. And that, to really make it real life, that can affect business, because it's just like, yeah, they were great. They found a lot, but I don't really know what to do. I don't really know how to fix it. I really didn't even understand what they found. So I'm gonna go, over with this other company because they do a better job of explaining it.
Yeah, because I think that what people don't get is that, for the most part, people who are doing pen testing are not doing it because, they want to. They're doing it because they have some sort of regulatory requirement for it.
Absolutely.
You're not paying the kind of money that, pen testers are getting billed for without, having a legitimate reason. Like, hey, I just want to be more secure. Like, you're paying it because you kind of got to, like, in the banking industry, for example, they have an annual pen testing requirement. Anybody who's adjacent I think there's a
Healthcare.
similar requirement for healthcare and in government as well, you know? So it's just kind of like, we're doing this because we need to.
Mhm.
And then people want to see, how do we, go forward? They don't want to just see that we can kind of break in and that we can, identify, the things, they want to, be able to check off a box, and when you have, for example, like highs and criticals and,
Mhm.
things in there, they can't check off that box,
Correct.
So I think being able to communicate it and to be able to tell them why they care is a valuable skill set, because
Absolutely.
that is what keeps the businesses, the checks coming in.
Absolutely. You made me laugh when you said most people are not. Most people are doing this because they have to, because it's very true. Most people would say, hey, if I did not have to be here, I probably would not.
No, I mean, I think a lot of pen testers do it because they enjoy the sport
Yeah.
of the thing, but I think that people hire us because they have to,
Yeah.
I've never, at least in my line of work, I've never seen anybody just doing a pen test for sport,
No.
like
Not a
outside of like,
professional. Not a
yeah,
professional.
like, hey, I want to go pay, $10,000-$20,000 to get have somebody hack me, tell me I've got problems, then they're going to cost more money to fix. So, it's, you've got to understand like why people want you there in the first place. And I think that helps keep you employed, to being able to articulate that.
And I would, especially to go back on your other point of, I think everyone really in tech or really in cybersecurity is you get to a point where it's just, if you want to, I guess, move up, is you have to really begin to master okay, why does this matter to like my employer? Why does this matter to my business?
Yes.
Because that's what allows you to get to the kind of the chief or the CISO, or, within security or really within tech, that's what allows you to move up, where it's, hey, I'm good at security, but here's why, here's why it matters. And here's why, we need to focus on all this stuff.
Yeah. I think that, for the people who have, higher heights for world domination plans, right? In order to, see a Black woman, basically occupying that space, you're going to have to know the business. You're going to have to know the technical piece. You're going to have to be able to explain, the why, right? Because, realistically, when we look at CISOs now, 99.99% of them are white males. We don't see a lot of women operating in those spaces. And when we do, for the most part, they're probably white women, So for someone to kind of take a chance, despite, all of the credentials, that we may have, for someone to take a chance on you, as you get to higher heights, you've got to be able to discuss, why it makes business sense, like why they should do it, because they're not going to want to.
Yeah, especially, and this is one of the things that I'm learning myself, of basically being able to switch between two groups of people. You kind of have your technical or your security people. They're going to want to care more so about, okay, how did you find it? What steps did you take? And then more so toward the business side of, okay, what's the risk here? How much is this going to cost if I don't do anything? How much is it going to cost to remediate it or fix it? If you can do that, you'll be in good shape almost wherever you go.
Yeah, I definitely agree that, because depending on who your stakeholders are, the technical people want to know, well, can your average script kiddie be able to do this? How much do I care?
Right.
Is this something that's readily available, or is this something that requires a higher level of skill? That's going to determine whether or not they're going to, maybe accept the risk versus try to mitigate it in some way. And then the business people care, what's my bottom line?
Right.
Why do I care about this? What are they going to be able to get? If I say, hey, I've got all of your, your credit card accounts, then, and this is going to end up costing you a whole lot of money, then, that's going to make them make moves a lot more than, hey, I got this, really cool exploit. You should really care about it.
Right. And actually, funny story is, back when I was, my first job out of school, and when I was basically over in their security department, I think a lot of people on the team, because I think we were so, I guess, at the bottom of the organization, or we weren't high up, is we would basically, find development teams who had these security vulnerabilities in their apps, and we would point it out. And we would always be, I guess, disappointed when we heard from up top, hey, you know, we're not going to act on that. And I think it took me a while to understand. It's like, why are they not acting? Like, we found the vulnerability. Like, why would you not? But now I understand it's more of, okay, if we do that, what's the cost to our business? Yes, it's a vulnerability, but how likely is it that that is going to be exploited? And then what's the cost that that's going to take to our bottom line? Okay. And I'm guessing from the fact that they, you know, pushed it down the lane, is that the cost of fixing it wasn't equal to the cost of keeping things the same, or basically keeping the business running. And that's just something you learn with time.
And that's the driver, you know, when it comes down to it, like if all hell breaks loose and, you know, this goes bad, how much is that going to cost me, right?
Yeah.
How much is it going to cost me to mitigate it? If the cost to mitigate it is more than the cost to the business,
It's not happening.
It doesn't make sense for me to do it. So one of the things that you mentioned just now was finding vulnerabilities and saying, hey, we're not going to fix it, right?
Right.
Is there a bug bounty space in the mobile application?
So for a app, like any app?
For any app, you know, like is there this kind of the same way that web applications have like a bug bounty program where it's like, hey, you find common vulnerabilities. So if you go and break people's apps, you know, is there a bug? Do you know if there's a bug bounty space in that mobile space?
It's funny you mentioned that. Some of the penetration testing that we do, that's actually a use case to know if the client of the mobile app, if they have a vulnerability disclosure policy. Some do, some don't, which you would be surprised at. So I would say in large part, if it's a normal company, they probably do. You would probably need to just, honestly, if you can Google it, HackerOne is probably a great bug bounty platform that a lot of companies use. I think BugCrowd is also another one. Most of the time, though, it's probably going to be, it should be on on the company's public site. So if you find anything there, it's usually usually something like a vulnerability. I know for example, Google, they have a vulnerability disclosure program where if you find anything related to their apps, you can just report it and you can actually get rewarded for it, which is pretty cool. That's actually another great way of how do you kind of get in the door? How do you showcase, back to Naomi's question of how do you showcase what you can do, is if you can show someone, hey, you know, I'm on this ranking on a publicly disclosed bug bounty program, because some of them are private. But if you can show, hey, I'm number 10 out of I don't know how many others, that kind of shows, okay, you're already doing it. And then there's some people that I've seen, Tanisha, where they actually get a CVE, or basically common vulnerability and exposure. Pretty much you can find a vulnerability that has not been found. And you can basically say, hey, these are the steps that I took to do it. And if it's big enough, they'll actually write it for you and say, hey, you know, Tanisha found CVE 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And anytime somebody finds that vulnerability, you know, it's going to be posted and you'll obviously get paid for it. But it's really the notoriety of, hey, I found something that's actually in the wild and actually exploitable.
Yeah, I've seen that happen a lot. I've seen people, you know, put that on their Twitter or their LinkedIn, like, you know, hey, finder of this particular CVE. You know, again, you know, for people who do this from the, I guess, kind of sport perspective, like, you know, for the bragging rights, you know, that's the type of thing that kind of differentiates you from, you know, other people who are also operating this space. Let's say, how is Web3 effective mobile penetration testing, or will it? Does it make a difference between Web 2 or Web 3 within the mobile testing space? Is the question.
So I guess I would ask, and Naomi, you can feel free to get online. What do you mean by Web 3? Just to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Oh, hi. Great talk, by the way.
Thanks.
I guess I'm hearing all this like blockchain, Web3, this new type of way that the web is moving. And I was wondering, will that affect mobile pen testing, or how can it change it? Or if someone was interested, should they look into blockchain or Web3 type of, you know, applications or tools? I don't know.
So what I would say right now is, and this is just my personal opinion, this is not backed by anything, I feel like Web3 is the future, but I feel like a lot of its components are still kind of fluid. So if I were starting out, so if I were starting out, I would focus on mobile, because I know for a fact that more people, I think it's like 70%, statistically more people are on the internet, connected to the internet through mobile than web. Web is still important, but as more and more people, as time goes on, more and more people are going to use their mobile devices for the internet. So from a security perspective, that is what I would go into today if I was somebody going into school, or I was looking for my first job. I would look for mobile security. Web3 at this point, it's too fluid for me to be able to specify, I guess, kind of what the effect of it is. My guess would be, as of right now, is that as Web3 gets developed, people are still going to use their mobile devices, at least for a time. And then maybe at some point, more people will connect through Web3. But right now, I feel like if you're going to learn about mobile and mobile security, that's a great bet right now. Not sure if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, and I've got, because we're coming up on the end of the hour, but I've actually got 2 questions for you that I want to make sure that I get in before the end of this. The first question is whether or not there are, I guess, legal considerations for example, reverse engineering web applications, or, deconstructing them, or, basically analyzing them kind of the same way that we have with, for example, public websites. That's the first question. And then the second question is your world domination plan. What does UP look like? What's the goal for you?
So I will take the legal question first. And this is just for pen testing in general. You can get in trouble if you're just pen testing just a average app. Like, that's basically, if you can download it on the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS store, I would stay away from that. Now, there are, if you're curious, there are vulnerable apps, and I've actually, because it's my job, I actually have looked around. And if you just want to poke around and say, hey, I want to get better at pen testing Android apps or pen testing iOS apps, there are apps that were made by people to be vulnerable. Those you can,
kind of like VMs, like people say, hey, this is an intentionally vulnerable VM that you can attack.
It was intentionally made. Hey, it's a passion project, and I made this so that people can learn in their spare time how to pen test Android or iOS apps. But as far as trying to pen test, let's Twitter or TikTok, that I would not advise that. You can get into some legal trouble doing that without permission. Okay. And then world domination. World domination. What does UP look like for you? So it's funny. I actually want to be a CISO as well. I listened to a podcast probably about a year ago. I stumbled across, it's called Life of a CISO. It's by a guy named Dr. Eric Cole. And he basically, his whole prompt was, hey, if there's a situation, let's say there's a data breach or there's some type of security incident, a security engineer, or basically somebody that's a very technical security person, your first instinct, basically he's asking, what is your first instinct? Is it, hey, I want to go in there and I want to figure it out and I want to be the one to say, hey, this is the vulnerability? Or do you want to be more so, hey, I'm going to talk to my executives. Hey, there's a situation, going to let you know about it within 60 minutes. You talk with your team. Hey guys, I need a report on what's going on. Tell me in 45 minutes. And then that's kind of how you diagnose the situation. And I'm like, honestly, I would like to be more of the manager or the coach in that instance, rather than the technical person that figures it out. And that's kind of, I think, when I knew that I wanted to start shifting more toward the business side of cybersecurity. I basically, like you said, I want to know both. I want to know enough technical knowledge to be able to talk to, cybersecurity technical practitioners about, what is the control, what's the risk, what's the vulnerability, but also then be able to go up to management and say, okay, this is the risk. This is what I'm asking for. I'm asking for, $500,000 to mitigate it. Do you accept? So that's kind of my world domination of looking forward. I'd love to be a CISO and be the top cybersecurity guy at a company. That's dope. I already told you that's my goal. So I'm going to see you at the top. Questions? Do we have any questions for Devin? We've got 4 minutes because it's a Sunday. I want to make sure that we're respectful of everybody's time. You can either unmute yourself or drop the question in the chat. Let me see what's going on YouTube. And if, by the way, if anyone isn't able to answer their question, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Let me post it in the chat. Love to ask questions. There we go. And chat.
Let me see what's going on YouTube.
There we go. If you could do anything different in your career, what would it be? Man, what would I do?
Garrett coming with the
Different.
1-2.
Differently. I think I would have been more strategic about it than I was when I started. I think probably for me, I probably really seriously got into networking and talking with other people in my career. Probably, I want to say about a year ago. And if I could do it over again, I would start with that. So that I basically could grow, my network even more so.
That's actually the same for me. Like I said, I've always tried to do this without people, but if I had it all to do over again, I probably would have taken over the world by now if I had, wanted to, engage with other people. All right. Any other questions for Devin?
Thanks, Naomi. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys all for coming out, hanging out with us on our Bring a Hacker to Work Day. Devin, thank you for coming. I appreciate you for sharing your information.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you for being absolutely, amazing and for working for a great company, because I'm a big fan of theirs as well, in addition to yours. So thank you. If you want to connect with Devin, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. He dropped his LinkedIn. We are also connected, so you can find him through, our mutuals. And everybody enjoy the rest of your day and take care. Be safe.
Thanks, everyone.